Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar. This is an Ask the Expert session, and today we're going to be exploring how to adopt a BYOD policy that will delight employees with recall from TeleWare. Before we introduce our panel today, I'm going to talk a little bit about BYOD. It's a terminology that's been around for quite a while now, but it's a trend that continues to evolve and grow as technology and working practices advance. In fact, Forrester have recently stated that 54% of European and North American companies have already implemented or are actively pursuing BYOD programs for smartphones and for tablets, and that 67% of employees who use smartphones for work select them personally, either via BYOD or a pre-approved list. So I think it's really interesting that the market is actually continuing to develop there. I was reading something online from TechTarget recently who said that there are a number of forward-thinking companies that have already embraced BYOD and are realizing the next significant increase in end-user productivity. BYOD is not a short-term movement, it is here to stay, whether you have a BYOD policy in place or not. So, what are the benefits of BYOD? First of all, it's about increased productivity. So it enables the end user to do their job wherever, whenever, and however they like. It also helps to improve employee satisfaction. It allows end users to actually use their device of choice, often the device they love, because they purchased it themselves. It also eliminates the need for two mobile phones, so there's no longer a need to carry around a separate personal phone and a business phone. And also, it can save the company money. There's no need to buy and issue new devices to end users because they can use their own personal device. So, before we go on, it's only right and proper that I introduce today's experts. So, first of all, we've got Nigel Simpson, who's Sales Manager here at TeleWare. Hi, Nigel.
Afternoon.
So, Nigel, you're here today to talk about a wide range of businesses that are currently using recall from TeleWare and to give some live examples of that. So it's going to be great to hear some of those things from you. And secondly, I'm joined by Andrew Fawcett, who's Product Manager here at TeleWare. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, and you've been leading the project to get recall out into the market here at TeleWare. So it's going to be particularly interesting to ask you some questions from our audience around kind of some of the challenges that they're facing around BYOD and some of the things they're interested in around recall in particular. So, before I go into asking you some questions, I just wanted to make the audience aware that there is still a chance for everybody to ask questions via the tool that's on the channel. So do ask away. All the questions are going to be confidential. I won't reveal who's asked what, but do ask away. And I'd like to thank everybody who's responded and asked questions in advance of the session. I've incorporated as many of those questions as I can into the questions I'm going to be asking the experts today. So, gentlemen, I'm going to start by asking you about recall. So, Andrew, what is it and how does it fit into a BYOD strategy?
We sort of developed recall in response to a lot of feedback we'd had from our customers, and they were telling us that they wanted to implement BYOD in such a way that it provided benefits, obviously, for both the employees and the employer. So recall's an app which works across both Apple, iOS and Android devices, so it will run on virtually any smartphone, any modern smartphone in the market now, and it provides you with a separate number upon which to make and receive your business calls, send and receive messages, and virtually is sort of a phone within a phone in many respects. It also provides a separate voicemail and address book, which is distinct from your own personal one on the phone, so it's a little bit like having two phones in one. Our customers, by and large, have told us that they don't want to carry two devices all the time, but equally want the ability to separate their business and personal communications. So we allow the business number to be diverted or switched off entirely when an employee is out of hours, giving them the control over their own availability. And separating the business and personal aspects of an employee's phone goes a lot of the way towards meeting the employer's requirements and obligations under the GDPR. And it allows the business number to be transferred very simply to another device should it be lost or stolen, or when an employee leaves the business.
And just to kind of refer to the slide that's on screen at the moment, I think it looks really good. It's very intuitive, and it's some of the feedback that we've been getting from customers who are already using it has been that it's a very easy to use application.
Yep.
Good. So Nigel, I'm going to come to you then. So what type of businesses does Recall most suit?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mark. I think we work at TeleWare with lots of varying different firms that sort of tend to have probably over 50 mobile employees, right up to sort of large enterprises, and we work across multiple sectors. So whether that's in financial, government, or professional services firms, for example. So the things that they have in common, though, really, is they want to increase employee mobility and help productivity, which obviously then leads on to customer and employee satisfaction. So Recall's really great because it enables, as you said at the beginning of the presentation, it really allows employees to use their own loved device, and provide a second number, so they can keep their business and personal calls and SMS completely separate.
Yeah, good. And another question that came in from somebody who's online today. So I just use one number for business and personal calls, so we don't need a separate second number. So Andrew, what are the pros and cons of that approach?
Well, you can look at that from both the point of view of the employee and the employer. So for the employer, what they get with Recall is the ability to continue using their preferred device. I don't really like to call it a loved device, as Nigel says. I like my phone, but I wouldn't say I love it. So they're already familiar and comfortable with it, and they don't need to sacrifice their personal number. They still get a business number as an overlay on the same device, which, as I said, is completely independent. And that goes, we found, along the way towards meeting the sort of needs of these millennial digital natives, as they're often called, who have a set of expectations around mobile working, which is shaped largely around their own personal use of mobile phones. These are people entering the workforce who have literally used mobile phones pretty much all of their lives. They've always been a thing there, and they are the preferred communications means. So this generation has a distinct set of values which can often blur the distinction between work and leisure. And they feel they no longer need to carry two devices, two chargers and sets of cables, but still want the ability to switch off work communications on their own terms. So on the other hand, for the employer, there are obviously significant cost savings from such approach, as well as promoting a modern and flexible approach to modern working. So from the employer standpoint, obviously there are no devices or mobile or contracts for the employer to continue to maintain, although some employers may wish to reimburse employees for the continued use of their personal devices and call plans and data. It's worth noting also from the point of view of employee protection, you're not asking your employees to give out the personal number for work purposes, and this can be a very important issue that prevents organisations going BYOD. That a lot of employees resist having their personal number used for business. We're sort of moving away from that. And the business number which is provided as part of Recall, that remains the property of the business. It remains the property of the employer, which means that there is a lot less risk of valuable business contacts being lost if and when an employee leaves the company.
Okay. And we've got another question here. So can I use an app providing a second number in my firm now that GDPR is in place?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, absolutely so. With Recall, one of the key sort of design decisions we made early on was to keep the employee's personal information absolutely secure and separate from the business side of things. And that includes the address book, messages, voicemails, all stored completely distinctly, securely and separately.
Okay, wonderful. So thinking about the user experience, what extra features would I get with Recall that I wouldn't have with a separate business phone?
So Recall's an app like any other which can be downloaded from the relevant app store. And to use it, the employer purchases a subscription which covers the provision of the business number and the voicemail, plus any optional features. Nigel, do you want to sort of build on that at all?
Yeah, as you say, really, I mean, in terms of the application itself, there's features that you can have that are in the Recall application that are a real benefit to the business. So in things like recording, for example.
Yeah. So recording being an extra thing that you can have on Recall that you wouldn't necessarily have on a separate business phone.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. So how do I get it? If I wanted Recall, what do I need to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've designed Recall to be extremely easy to use and also to deliver and to be adopted within an organisation. So as Andrew just said, Recall is an app like any other application. It can be easily downloaded from the relevant app store. To use that, the employer would effectively purchase a subscription to Recall, and as we just talked about, it covers the provision of the business number and voicemail. And we just touched on this as well. It's important to highlight that you can get additional features on there as well, such as call recording. There's also enhanced levels of security options as well, so you can actually have enhanced security into those recordings. And that'll allow the companies to really sort of greatly enhance employee things like productivity, as well as in contributing to sort of employee safety, regulatory compliance, those sorts of things.
Okay, good. So another question that's coming is a major concern within business revolves around security when it comes to BYOD. Is that there is less control over data. Are there remote wiping capabilities? Is the second phone capabilities, and is the second phone isolated so that work information cannot move to the user's own primary? Can I go to you, Andrew, on that?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, security is a concern for any corporate application. Just to be clear, Recall is really the piece of the jigsaw which provides the second line, the overlay number, and completely isolates that from the underlying, if you like, personal number. There are plenty of very good and recommended MDM solutions out there, which our customers typically employ with Recall, that handles things like the remote wiping of the data and the compartmentalisation of the personal apps and the personal information. So generally, depending on a client's security stance, would normally strongly recommend that they use some MDM in association with Recall.
Yeah, good. So Nigel, I'm going to come to you for this next question. So someone said we've got over 20,000 employees who are eligible for a mobile device, but they've all got lots of different preferences around devices and how they use their phones. How could Recall help this person and within their company?
Well, yeah, firstly, that's a fantastic question. I'm looking forward to going to speak to that client and their 20,000 employees. So that's great news, and we'll look to take that forward. Well, I think there's probably a couple of points in that question mark. So I think the first is around scalability. So Recall architecture has been designed to scale. We've recently signed an agreement with a really big financial services company that has the potential to scale to 43,000 users. So rest assured that you can have confidence that Recall can really scale. And I think the second point in that question is more around enabling employee choice. So Recall, as we have highlighted already, works across all vertical markets. It works across all departments. It's supported on iOS and Android phones, and it really does enable employees to have choice to use their device that they like or hopefully love. Andrew, at TeleWare, one of our key focuses is on customer employee experience, and we really try and strive to think how can we make that fantastic. So we've produced things like videos to address frequently asked questions, how to get the best out of Recall, and we can sort of really provide things like full project management and post-delivery service reviews as well.
Okay, good. Sounds wonderful. Now we've touched on money. Somebody's asked, can I save money with recall? Is it cost effective, Andrew?
I think in virtually all cases the answer will be yes, and we've developed a series of return on investment type templates which we've used with our customers to help build a business case for both bring your own device and the implementation of recall. I think one of those is just sort of an example of that is just up on the screen now. The precise savings that you'll get as an organisation will of course depend on your mobile working patterns and your current costs and your current mobile contracts and whether you choose to reimburse the employee and some of the things that I mentioned earlier. But we've found in practice it's not unusual for real savings in excess of £800 per employee per annum to be realised from such screens.
I guess to sort of chip in as well on that question, because that's a question that I get asked quite a lot, as head of sales within TeleWare. I'd say really, in the current economic climate, controlling costs and reducing TCO is obviously incredibly important. And, we do engage with customers to really review their own requirements, and every company is different. But I'll give you just a couple of examples if I can, just to give you a flavour around how we've helped clients really sort of identify and save money. So the first one that comes to mind is a large housing association that we work with. Now they had a challenge to drive 40% annual reduction in their IT spend. So as with other agencies, they're having to do a lot more with a lot less budget. And what they did is they actually removed all of the legacy PBX and their fixed line telephony out of the business, and then they moved towards a mobile services solution, which enabled them to drive huge cost savings from the business. But it's also allowed them to improve their customer experience by adding things like call recording into that service. So they've helped to reduce the budget, their cost of ownership, and enable additional services to be taken out. The second one I can think of is a large financial services company where, as Andrew's highlighted on that slide that we can see on the screen there, that we went through a very structured review to look at the cost of enabling a BYOD strategy. And we calculated from a productivity and a TCO perspective that we were able to save that particular organisation £6 million per annum for every 10,000 mobile phones. So hopefully it gives you a flavour of a couple of examples there.
And it's probably worth noting at this point as well, so that type of organisation where they're in the thousands of mobile phone users, there's an environmental impact about kind of reducing the number of phones that they're issuing and they're buying and that are in circulation. I think that's kind of a point that's also worth making as well.
Yeah, certainly. It's of increasing concern and profile the number of used smartphones which are going into landfill every year, and the environmental impact of those. Obviously, a business can make a big impact on its footprint purely by halving the number of mobile phones that its staff are carrying about, and the employee often likes to think they're doing their bit as well.
Yeah, I think we actually pulled together an infographic around the environmental impacts of mobile phone production, and I'll send that out to all of to everybody who's tuned in, because I think it's quite an interesting view. Okay, so another question. My employees complain most about connectivity. Does recall help with this?
Yeah, I'll pick up that one. So a lot of apps that enable second numbers on mobile phones, recall's by no means unique, but a lot of these use VoIP or internet calling. So you make your call over Wi-Fi or your mobile data as opposed to the voice network. Now, this does have advantages, obviously in terms of cost and providing signal availability where traditional phone signals are poor. However, where data or Wi-Fi is weak, they may not work very well or not at all. So with recall, we allow the user to switch intelligently between internet VoIP calling and traditional calling using the GSM mobile network. So in effect, you're getting the best of both worlds.
Excellent. Right, I've got just one more question to ask. So if you have got a question that you're burning to ask, then do send that through now. So so the question I've got is, so what are the things I should do if I want to introduce a BYOD scheme into my business? Andrew, I'm going to come to you on that one.
How long have we got?
We've got about 8 minutes.
I won't talk too much. In all honesty, that's probably too big a subject to cover off on a relatively short webinar such as this. But as Nigel alluded to earlier, we've been working with a lot of organisations across different sectors and different sizes of organisations to help them all individually bring their flavour of BYOD deployment forwards. And from that, we've shared in and helped resolve a lot of the sort of common issues and pitfalls in there. And we sort of feel that we can help share that learning. And I think if you were to summarise it, some of the key issues that we've come across and around helping ensure employee buy-in to such a scheme. If a scheme's going to work, it has to have buy-in from all stakeholders across the business, not least of which the employees. And establishing suitable and fit-for-purpose processes and policies, and as the question alluded to earlier, managing the security and privacy risks which are associated with BYOD, those all need to be taken forward and sort of planned for. So these are all questions we get asked for very frequently, and I hope we'll be able to sort of revisit those on another of our webinars early in the new year.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. So they were all the questions that we've had for today. So I'd like to thank both of you for your time today. Some great answers there, and I'd like to thank everybody who's tuned into today's webinar. Hopefully that's been a really useful session and has given you some food for thought around your own BYOD strategies, and hopefully kind of get you excited about Recall and how Recall from TeleWare can help you with what you're looking to achieve. A couple of other things I just wanted to mention. First of all is that we've got a white paper that I've made available on the channel, looking at productivity and exploring whether or not millennials could be the answer to the UK's poor productivity. So click that on the attachments on the screen. And do give us some feedback as well. So these Ask the Expert sessions are pretty new for us, and it would be great to get your feedback around, does this format work? Are there any topics that you would like us to cover on these? So do let us know what you think of today's session. And keep an eye out for upcoming webinars as well. We've got another webinar that's taking place next week. That's on the channel, so you can click to register for that today. So without further ado, thank you very much and goodbye.